The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Welcome to the Dukes Court. I'm here tonight with Chris Little Poison Fletcher, Gary Big Poison Kinn, and I'm Dave the Cobra Finoli. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hello, Dave, Gary.
Are you upset you're with Little Poison, Fletcher?
It's not your size. It's what you do with it. So,
That's what I
like
say.
I'm batting average, I believe, too, for the little.
I think you did too.
Well, our first subject tonight, we're going to be talking about training camp in Pennsylvania. While on the east side in Philadelphia, we're in the area where Gary hails from at this point, they're preparing to defend their Super Bowl title. It so impresses me, I have my words all jumbled. On our side, we got the drama. We got the news. We got Ben starting out after the draft whining about the Steelers. How dare they pick a successor to the old man, the guy who every year kept saying, I'm going to quit. I got to think about quitting. Oh, why did they draft a quarterback? I'm going to play 5 more years. Well, that's why they drafted a quarterback, Ben. But you have that. You also had his coming to Jesus with the new diet, which, according to some of the media members I hear, he's talking about it in just about every media session. So we have that. That's pretty exciting stuff. And Antonio Brown, who certainly loves to be the center of attention. But you know what? My thought on him, if this guy, he's put in numbers no receiver has ever done in a period of time in the NFL. If he wants to choreograph a dance that's going to get a 15-yard penalty, I don't care. If he wants to come out and come in a plane, I don't care. This guy, if this is what inspires him to be the greatest receiver in team history and, quite frankly, one of the top 5 receivers I've seen in my lifetime, then by all means let him be the center of attention. I got no problem with that. You got Bell's yearly holdout. Now, Fletch, I know you personally were impressed at his training ground the other day when they were showing a picture of him at a Miami strip club. So he is doing his best to get in shape.
He showed good form throwing those dollar bills out there. Very good form.
He did. It was very.
He was in mid-season form, in fact, I would say.
Well, it says something about him wanting to be ready for opening day. So we have that there. And then we have James Harrison, the guy who was such an incredible ass, if you receive or believe the reports that came out about the things he did last year, like a 2-year-old, coming out and saying that Belichick is better than Tomlin because of discipline. A man who just was so undisciplined last year. I mean, I don't understand how somebody's not embarrassed acting like that. To me, he was just an ass. There's no other way to put it. And to come out, I just had a little kick out of that. But people ask, is this attitude going to hurt their return to the Super Bowl? Which I say no. I say this is these are talented players. What hurts their opportunity to go to the Super Bowl in the last few years is their defense has sucked. Right now, you're looking at a linebacker crew that while you sign Bostic, and Bostic sounds like he has had a hell of a camp. So Matakevich is certainly a gutsy guy, a guy who gives his all, but he hasn't shown me to be a great NFL linebacker at this point. So if Bostic can come in, and actually if you look at the stats, I know he played fewer games than last year with Ed Shazier, but this guy actually had some pretty impressive stats. He had more tackles for losses than any Steeler, and I think it's going to be a better signing than what they're saying. But this nouveau, let's put in extra safeties to act like linebackers approach, we'll see if it works. But that's, if they don't make a Super Bowl, to me, that's why they don't make a Super Bowl, is they just they have a solid defensive line. with Burnett in there, now they have a pretty solid backfield with Hayden back healthy, playing a full year in the system. But that linebacker core is so important. Dupree has shown nothing. Now he has concussion symptoms. As I talked about Matakevich, and hopefully Bostic can go in there. Vince Williams, solid player, not a star. And, you know, you got to hope T.J. Watt is the kind of guy that that can come in and play the way he did in the first couple games last year. He kind of struggled after that. You got to hope that was just because he was playing a long season for the first time. But I will go on and say that the positive thing for this team is that was one hell of a draft they had. You know, the Terrell Edmonds, I think, is going to be a solid player. I don't think he was a good first-round pick. He's somebody they could have gotten in the second or third. But James Washington is a guy who can make plays. Mason Rudolph, I watched him quite a bit last year. Saw him up close against Pitt a couple years ago. Well, actually, last year I saw him. It was a couple years ago. I think it was away. But he's a hell of a passer. He's accurate. He seems mature, and I think he crushes Landry Jones as far as talent. But the key to this draft is, correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but Okafor. But not quite good with the pronunciation, but I did see him a few times last year at Western Michigan, and this kid can play. This kid, many people projected him as first and second talent, just needs a little fine-tuning, but he could be a guy who comes in on the offensive line and just is dominating and certainly might down the road push some starters out of a job. Fletch, what are you thinking about the Steeler team and the drama? Are you feeling bad that they drafted a quarterback for Ben and how upset he is? Are you happy that he's on?
You know, I feel bad for Landry Jones because, you know, a nice guy, but he's the caretaker. That's all he is. And if anything happened to Ben, I don't think they were going anywhere. But you know, I just want to start by giving props to Gary's team, you know, the Gary's area team. Let's put it that way. I'm not sure if Gary is an Eagles guy or not. But
absolutely not. But continue on.
Okay. All right.
No, the props to the area.
Yeah, I live there. Right.
It's going to be interesting, though. I mean, once you're the Super Bowl champ, everyone's gunning for you, and then there's also that whole Super Bowl hangover thing. So we shall see what happens there. For me, for training camp, I think one of the big things that's going to happen won't involve the players at all. It's going to involve the visit from the officials when they're going to try to outline what these new rule changes in terms of leading with your head are going to mean. So that's going to be interesting. You mentioned the Lev Bell situation. You know, I can't blame either side in that whole impasse. You know, these players have limited years to make as much money as possible. And, guys, he's a playmaker. I mean, he truly is. And for the Steelers, you know, you can't tie up that amount of money on a player who hasn't played a full season yet. So I get it. I get both sides. I really do. My big story going in is, you know, even though the Steelers won't be showing anything, you know, when they take the field for the first time tomorrow, the big question is the defense, as you said, Dave. You know, specifically how they're going to deal with two issues, and that's big plays and then the hole caused by Shazier's horrific injury. You know, you did mention they added linebacker John Bostic, but I guess he's been playing with the second team in the spring, and then, you know, they were giving Matakevich more work with the starters. So I don't know if that's a good sign or not. And Morgan Burnett at safety, well, Mike Mitchell wasn't as bad as he was made out to be, but I still think it's a little bit of an upgrade. So now you have Burnett and Marcus Allen, two big safeties. So are we going to see this whole hybrid linebacker safety thing? Again, not that we're going to see anything in the preseason, but that's going to be interesting to watch. And, you know, my other question is what's going on in running back? You know, we better find out soon. You know, is James Conner's return from injury going to be a good one? And who else is there? Is it Jalen Samuels? Is that the other guy? So that's going to be a factor in determining what happens with that position in the future. And as you said, quarterback's always going to be interesting. You know, And from what I heard from someone who's been out there, that Ben hasn't been real helpful to Rudolph. So we'll see what happens. He's been sort of sulking throughout the whole thing. But hey, he's lighter. He's lighter and he's happier, and eat more veggies. God bless.
Hopefully, he's having more productive bowel movements. I think that's
It's all about the fiber, fellas. It's all about.
Stay away from the Permane sandwiches.
It is, man. But I agree with what you're saying. It is Samuels. I think Connor has certainly proven that he can be an effective running back, but
he can't stay healthy, Dave. That's the problem.
That's what I was going to say. He can't stay healthy. He's not a consistent receiver, and quite frankly, where he struggled the most, and what Bell gets little credit for is Bell's a hell of a blocker, and Connor is not. And that's an understated plus to that offense. I agree with you, Fletch. I have no problem with what Le'Veon Bell asked for. I mean, was it insane? Perhaps. It's a gamble. But he felt he was worth that. And if he gets that next year, then he's right. And it was a good gamble, and I have more power to him. I have no problem with that. And I agree with the Steelers, too. I mean, when you're already a very good team paying a lot of guys big money, it's kind of tough to, you pay Le'Veon Bell, you're not going to be paying other positions that you probably need to upgrade on in the future.
But I'll tell you one thing, guys. I feel better about James Washington than I do about Martavis Bryant. So. Oh,
you're going to love James Washington, and I know you've seen him quite a bit too. I'm a huge fan of his. I thought that was just a dynamite, and I'm going to use that in honor of Jimmy Walker. Dynamite pick at the second pick for the Steelers, and I'm just very excited about that. And I like you am very concerned with. And again, it might be genius. The ultimate safety defense might be a genius thing, but it could be something that makes this team 8-8 also, if it doesn't work.
Yeah, I agree. Gary, are you getting much news over on your side of the state?
Well, I have a couple thoughts. I don't see, and we don't get the coverage back here of some of the Steelers stuff that obviously you guys get out west there. But I think on this team, I can't blame Bell for having this situation or asking for that. I mean, let's face it. I mean, him and Brown really, along with Roethlisberger's size and honestly his courage, reminds me of Jim McMahon, but better. Years ago, as far as standing there and taking a beating. I mean, you can't blame Bell for doing that, but I can't blame the Steelers for taking that position either. In a sport where the next play you could be finished. Yeah. But I think on this team, I don't really think he knows he's got the leverage because of all the things he can bring you, everything from the blocking to the carrying the ball to catching it and everything else in a passing game. I mean, there's talk back here about some of that super safety type of defense too, almost like college football type of defense, because it's become such a passing game. Really, nobody runs the ball anymore significantly. Everybody's throwing the ball with the three wide receivers, and even the tight end half the time on some of these teams is a wide receiver. So I get some of that. I think the thing I mentioned this to you, Dave, a little bit in the past. I think the thing that kind of disappoints me a little bit when I hear about all this, honestly, nonsense to me going on out in that Steeler camp with flying in a plane. You're right. Does it really matter if they're going to win? No. But, the organization, I knew somebody back here that I had a business relationship with that I actually worked for, who was one of the Eagles ownership group. And he never said much of anything. But the one thing he always would say is, I want the Eagles organization to follow the Pittsburgh Steelers in terms of everything, in terms of how it presented itself to the public, what its reputation was, what its, Steelers didn't deal with holdouts real well in the past. And they have a lot of this controversy, the Terrell Owens, Dallas Cowboys constant raised controversy. Look at myself, and I'm not sure that's what this is, but I mean these 4 or 5 things it just kind of disappoints me. I mean because the Steelers were one of the last organizations that didn't have all this, e-network soap opera nonsense going on. I mean I think Roethlisberger's always been kind of a look at me, and you're right. He's always complained about how beat up he is, and he's injured every year, usually at a key time of the year because he gets hit too much. And then he complains when they go out and get somebody that can help him win football games, so at least he has a chance to play deep into the postseason again. I mean, it's just hard to understand. And I would wish somebody from the front office would get down and tell him to just shut up, honestly. Yeah. You know, because, I mean, there's a lot of organizations that, quite frankly, that kind of stuff really hurts the organization's reputation. I mean, I just hope it get it under control. I mean, you know, you can't really read into it. You know, with regard to Harrison's commentary and even Pouncey and Hayward. I think Hayward said something I saw in the paper here that he said that Tomlin plays favorites in the locker room or something like that. Sounds like grade school. You know, you hope that stuff doesn't have an underlying tone underneath it. Does that mean they won't win 11 games? But, I mean, if you got a locker room that's really, particularly a contact sport like football or hockey, you got a locker room that's baseball, you can get away with it. Basketball, you can get away with it. I'm not really sure you can get away with it in contact sports where the carnage piles up over the course of the season. I don't think you have to love each other. You know, not everybody has to be you can have some look-at-me guys, but you better not have a deep distaste for the coaching staff and everything else, because I think it's going to hurt you. And I hope that's not the case there. You know, I don't want to read too much into it. The media takes this stuff and runs with it, but, God, I hope that's not the case, and I hope that organization doesn't fall into some of the other NFL franchises which have some of this nonsense going on all the time, you know, including this one in the past. I mean, it's interesting, you know, Fletch, you talk about this organization. I think that's the one thing the organization did well. When Owens was here, he created so much havoc in the media, in the locker room, and everything else. And Hugh Douglas was here with him, who was almost him 1B, but not quite as much look at me. The organization seemed to shift its gears. You know, it seemed to say, look, we're not going to do that anymore. I mean, you know, we're not going to have somebody come in here and do this kind of stuff that we're paying a fortune to that's going to embarrass us in a lot of ways. We're getting rid of it. And they changed the front office. They put this guy Roseman in place, who's really a number cruncher, much like baseball. They brought in Peterson, who had really been under, you know, there were a lot of things wrong with Reed, but he won consistently. You know, he was a Carl Peterson disciple. Peterson's one of those. These are people that had a lot of success in the NFL. So I'm not really surprised if you stop and look at the overall picture why they kind of turned it around here. You know, I think that they really surprised a lot of people. They're a lot speedier team than a lot of people realize, particularly on defense. And I think they benefited quite a bit from a weak division. I mean, the Cowboys were competitive, but the Redskins and Giants really weren't. You know, they piled up a lot of wins there. You know, and I'm not taking away from their Super Bowl victory, but I think that really helped them get to the 13-3. I think this year it'll be interesting to see what they do with a tougher schedule, although the schedule's really not all that tough when you look at it. I mean, they open up with Atlanta on the traditional Thursday. They don't play anybody that's really all that very good, at least last year, until Minnesota on October the 7th. Then they have Carolina and Jacksonville.
That doesn't hurt the division they're in either.
No, I think the division's one of the weakest in football now. It was one of the best for years, but you know, under Snyder, the Redskins can never get it together. There's a lot of money thrown in places that it makes no sense. You know, he's a look at me on the owner's side. The Giants organization, for one reason or another, just fell through the floor, you know, the past couple of years, and I think Manning's getting a little bit older. But you're right. I mean, you look at that division. I mean, other than let's say they split with the Cowboys, but they win the other 4 games. I mean, you're 5-1. You only got to get 10 or 11 wins to get in the postseason. They're probably looking at a postseason again. Season gets a little tougher at the end. They have Dallas and the Rams and Houston right in a row in December with 2 of those games away. That could cause some havoc for them late in the season. But I think they're going to make it again, and I think they're going to be competitive again. I mean, the big controversy here, but it hasn't been a controversy so far, although there's starting to be a little bit of rumblings from Foles, is the fact that, you know, Wentz was hurt late in the season. He was looking at an MVP type of season. He gets hurt. Foles comes in. Nobody expected that to happen. In fact, here, they have a tendency to go the negative way pretty quickly, as you've seen, Dave, with the baseball. You know, then Foles stepped in and did a pretty fantastic job, but I think it was more the coaching staff and the preparation. And better receivers, although no names than anybody realizes. You know, I think that could become a little bit of a Fleury-Murray situation, because although Wentz was very popular, I mean, Foles is probably a little more popular. He's a little bit better in front of a camera. You know, he's kind of a positive, you know, thinking, speaking kind of guy. You know, and they were so starved for victory here. This, you know, it's a diehard following, much like Pittsburgh, but a little nastier, as we all know. But you know, they have been starved for 48 years with really not going very far, getting one chance and getting blown out by New England. And I think that, people have a tendency to put Foles on a pedestal. Now, they also released him here. He couldn't win the job in St. Louis and lost it to Sam Bradford. And he came back here and knew the system, and they succeeded. I'm not really sure he's better than Wentz is, but I think a lot of people are going to be clamoring pretty quickly if Wentz comes back and he's not as effective. It could cause a little bit of a headache here, I think, public relations-wise and for the team. But I mean, the organization did a lot of good things. I mean, I think Bennett's got his issues, like it seems like everybody in the NFL does, that they picked up from Seattle with, running over that paraplegic woman at the Super Bowl a couple years ago. I mean, he's got his issues, and he's made some other public stuff here that I wish these guys would just shut up about, with regard to, public issues. But, they had a hole there. They picked him up. So they filled the other defensive end was the best player on defense last year, a guy by the name of Graham. Now the other side, they have a guy who's clearly a top-flight NFL defensive end, although a little bit older. They needed some help there. They had a pretty good receiving core last year. They don't have a lot of emotion here. They're kind of like the 49ers. Brent Selleck was very popular here as a player and in the community. He's at the end of his career. They released him, and they picked up a kid who I don't know much about, but a kid by the name of Dallas Gators, who caught the ball for like 75 receptions and about 1,100 yards for South Dakota State. Now, I'm not sure he's playing against the competition he's going to see in the NFL, but he's pretty big. He's pretty agile, apparently. Apparently they're pretty high, and a lot of teams were. So, they do seem to have looked at what their holes were, despite the fact that they won, and they positioned themselves to fill them. So, do I think they're going to win again? Not so sure. Do I think that they could have some controversy at the key position? Yes. Do I think that they're going to be very competitive again and have a chance? I do, because of the schedule, and honestly because of, I think, a pretty good front office. So I won't be surprised if they go deep again. But obviously, so many things can happen in football with injury and everything else. We'll have to see. So,
well, I would think inevitably you want to go with Foles, solid quarterback, played well in the playoffs. Wentz seems like he's the stud. He seems like he, at least in the short, you've seen him probably more than I have, but it seems to me he seems like the stud. He seems like the guy that could be the Roethlisberger over the next decade or so for Philadelphia. Is that basically your feelings?
He's bigger and thicker than Foles is. He's got to learn a little bit, I think, at this level. I mean, the injury he suffered against the Rams in December was one of those freakish, getting hit on both sides of your knee by, two guys that have a body that's perfect because of their young ages. And he got a little torn up there, in that knee because of that. He sometimes, though, takes a little bit too much contact, I think. And, you don't want a guy to not play the way he can. But yeah, clearly he, to me, is probably the better specimen and the better skills. I mean, 33 touchdowns, Dave, only 7 picks. His quarterback rating was staggeringly high. He's kind of, and he apparently, he's a guy that really picks the right thing pretty quickly. Apparently, according to other people around the league. So, yeah, I think he's the stud. But on the other hand, he is coming back from an injury, and this is a tough place to do anything, to live, to work, to be a fan, anything. And if he's struggling early, the loud clamoring is going to put a lot of pressure on the coaching staff. Now, they don't always listen to it here. I think they did for a number of years. I don't think they listened to it, but I could see this being a Murray-Fleury type of Pittsburgh. Everybody's taking their side, and they've got their reasons. If they start out of the gate a little slow, I just don't think they will. The first 4 games are Atlanta. May lose that one, although it's here in South Philly. They go to Tampa, Indianapolis at home, and at Tennessee. I mean, they could sweep all 4 of those. Then they play Minnesota late afternoon on October 7th. I could see them losing that one for a lot of reasons. But the schedule starting out is not that difficult. So I could see them kind of coming out of the gate pretty quickly, and a lot of people here starting to, go crazy, thinking that they're going to run the table again. The organization deserves a tremendous amount of credit for not getting tied up in the big names, going after big names, or going at the end of their careers, and really understand the game and change around it. It's really not a big physical team. It's a speed team with a lot of athleticism. And they deserve a lot of credit for that. The way the game has changed, the way the rules have changed and stuff like that, they positioned a team that's very, very capable of winning that way. So, but that's also a team that's physical, not very physical. So if they get in against some teams that are really starting to hammer them up, Yeah, I could see a lot of injuries start to pile up too. So,
yeah. Do you see an all Pennsylvania Super Bowl, Fletch?
Well, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? The thing about the Steelers, we talk a lot about the window, and I think we're looking at a window that you've got maybe a couple of years. So if you're going to do something, this is the year to do it. And I think that the Patriots are beatable. I think that Jacksonville is going to take a little bit of a step back. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, you talk about, Gary, you talk about being in a weak division. I mean, the Steelers, all these years have had the benefit of 2 games against the Browns. And that's a nice way to roll up some victories. Although, I got to tell you guys, I hate to say it, but I think it's going to be a little bit better Browns team. And I think that's good. I mean, to me, as a Steeler fan, I can't hate the Browns. It's just, they're not good enough to hate. It's you can't have a rivalry unless one team occasionally wins. So I'm hopeful that they're making some better decisions, and then that's going to be a little bit more competitive. The Bengals. If you guys can explain to me how Marvin Lewis still has a job, I would be. I'd like to hear it because I don't get it. Harbaugh's a good coach down in Baltimore. I mean, it's a team that I didn't think they were as good as they showed last year, but he did a hell of a job there.
He's a hell of a coach, but I would classify this as a weak division this year. I think the Bengals and the Browns are going to be 5-6 win teams, and I don't really see Baltimore being more than a 500 team. So I think they can get to the playoffs the same as Philadelphia can, but I just right now, and again, maybe we'll see differently in the year. I don't see this defense as being effective enough to get them there. I just in the playoffs, if you don't have a good defense, and you saw that last year, you're not going to win.
Well, you can't score 42 points in a playoff game and lose.
correct.
Well, that's true, but the 42 points were a bit of a misnomer.
That's true. There was some garbage time.
At the end. I think they got their ass kicked last year.
Yeah.
But I hope
The only thought I'll have for you guys, I have a friend who's affiliated with the Maxwell Club here. He was a good football player himself in the 60s. He played out in the West Coast, UCLA. At the same time, Simpson was there, and I work with him from a business standpoint. So he's really connected to these guys. He doesn't talk a lot about it. Older guy, Italian guy, but he said that a lot of the rumble around the league is with regard to the Rams. That the Rams were very close last year. Goff's really matured. I don't know. They signed Gurley that big contract. I never know if that hurts a guy or helps a guy. But he said a lot of rumors around the league. A lot of people worried about them.
I would too. That's a good team.
Right, team that's likely to challenge for the Super Bowl, and a lot of people feel this could be a breakout. You're assuming health, assuming good health. But and apparently a lot people get hung up at sports on whoever the latest hot guy is. But this guy McVay, although he's only 34, 35 years of age, players love him. A lot of people around the league respect him. So, he said that in his mind, that would be the team that he would think would come out. Now, that's not Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, he said, but in his mind, some of the people that are around this all the time, he does speak with some of the owners and stuff because of that Maxwell Club affiliation. He said a lot of people around the league feel that's really the team that, quite frankly, this year would be the favorite from the people inside football. But football is just so, more than any other sport, so many things can just derail it. Injuries, that kind of stuff especially. Who knows? But
and that's a great thing about the salary cap. You go in there, except if you're in the bottom 20% of the league, you got a shot at going to the Super Bowl. And to me, that's why a team why a league succeeds. And Fletch, you had mentioned earlier a little about you can't hate the Browns because of what they were for 20 years. I heard that from various baseball fans around the country that they can't hate the Pirates because of who they were for between 1993 and 2012. Tough to hate a team that always loses, but Our second subject of the night. Last week, I whined on here about thinking Neal Huntington was going to do nothing as he always does, thinking that despite the fact the team had gotten themselves into playoff contention, that they were just going to kind of pass it and then sell down the road. But Neal Huntington stunned me. I'm sure he stunned us all. Two deadline trades that were just mind-boggling that they happened. I mean, he gave up prize prospects. What the hell am I saying recruits for? They're prospects, for God's sake. And he gave up Boston Meadows, who had, quite frankly, even though he slumped towards the end of his tenure in Pittsburgh, had shown he could play at this level. I thought he was a little better defensively than what he might have shown in the past, but he showed me something. He showed me that I would have been comfortable with him as a starting outfield in the future. And quite frankly, just absolutely stunned, especially that they gave up him. But Chris Archer was, to me, the plum of the trade market as far as on the mound. And to think that the Pirates had a chance at such a guy, had you told me that before the show? In fact, I think I chuckled at it when I heard the rumor.
You did openly mock it. You did.
I did. That
will happen, I think, or something like that. Yeah.
I mean, and stunningly, it happened. And I mean, Glasnow, they say he's looked different in Tampa, but really, they're basically pitching three relief pitchers every night, and Glasnow did have moments where he was fine as a reliever, but I'm still not convinced over the course of 7 innings he can be effective. But I mean, Archer comes. He's struggled a little last couple of years. I think his secondary stats have been pretty good. His hits per innings pitched have been pretty good over the last few years. Maybe gives up a few more home runs than he should have. I think probably the one thing that kills him is he has a nasty fastball, a great slider, but he still hasn't developed that changeup to the point where he's going to be effective over the course of 7, 8 innings. Although he's trying to get it there, but he has shown brilliance. I mean, at times, and I think, Fletch, you were talking a little earlier about how Taillon looked yesterday, and there's a kid that for years we thought he had the talent to be a number one, and he goes out when the team needs to picked up after they slid a little bit, and Taillon picked him up. Taillon was damn good last night. So to have Taillon and Archer over the next few years as your top two pitchers makes you feel a lot more comfortable about that pitching staff at this point. Then you go to Texas and get Kayla, who was one of the, if not the premier closer, relief pitcher on the market. And he had done a wonderful job for Texas this year. And he comes in and all of a sudden, you're not – you got just a nice with Crick in the 8th inning, Kayla in the 7th. You got our buddy Vasquez closing it out. And today against Colorado, looked exactly as a great bullshit pen should look. You get a starter going 5, 6 innings, all of a sudden you're not worried about blowing a 1 or 2 run lead. These guys have certainly upgraded the bullpen. And then the other day, you get a guy who can finally play shortstop in Hechavarria. Yep. Who is a tremendous defensive player. He's hitting about 258. They whine about his offense, some of the experts, but you look at it, I mean, there are a lot of good defensive players who come up at 200, 210. He's not a killer. His OPS is never going to be outrageous, but the guy can play defense. And to me, this has been the one thing Neal Huntington has failed at over the years, is he drafts, and we've talked about it so many times, that he drafts and develops these pitchers and then puts a sieve of a defense behind him. Mercer, who can catch a ball that comes right to him, and Harrison, who is just a bad defensive player, are not what you want up the middle. This was him recognizing that, recognizing Rodriguez probably wasn't the problem, although his oblique strain, I'm sure, is just something to keep him on the roster. And he's putting somebody in here who is a solid defensive player. I don't know who this guy is. I don't know where this general manager came from, but this is not the Neal Huntington we know and love. You know, this is a guy who went out and he defied the critics, and you wonder whether the average of 17,000 fans a game, far under what they've ever had there, had a factor into it. And I think it did, because I don't see any other reason for him to change philosophies with a team that was 4 games over 500, except that's a lot of fans to be losing every game. It's the worst decline in baseball. And, you know, this is not a bad core that they have here. This is a core that can compete for playoff spots, but they had weaknesses. And where it's going to be tough to make the playoffs this year because of the amount of teams you have to jump over. And they have a tough schedule. And we were talking about this a little earlier, Fletch. And I think I was talking about it with you too, Gary. But they have a tough schedule. But I'd rather be playing the tough schedule with teams in front of you, because if you get hot with teams in front of you, you've got a better shot at making the playoffs. Fletch, you said they have to win 90 games to make the playoffs, which sounds about right. That's a 31-16 finish, which is very feasible. Gary, what do you think about that, especially looking at this team trading full of attention at the
storms, Dave? I think a lot of things came together here. I mean, think about all the following factors. This year, we really don't have in the National League a particularly dominant team. I mean, you know, last year the Dodgers blew everybody away, and that changes the playoff picture when you have that kind of situation. This year the Cubs have gotten really hot. They're the best team in the league, but they have plenty of flaws themselves, I think. But there's no dominant team. So I think the perfect storm that I'm referring to is a couple things. Pirates got really hot in July with that, whatever it was, 11-game winning streak and 16-20 or whatever, and they climbed right in it. I mean, in the past, I saw McCutchen complained a little bit about this. Well, when I was there, they didn't do that. Well, when he was here, most of the time they were in the race come July, and then they would fall out of it. So, I mean, Huntington, I'm not sure he was there for all of those years that I remember those things happening, but this year the opposite situation occurred. They got hot and climbed back in it. And in a year that I don't think anybody is really a clear dominant favorite. I still think Chicago and L.A. are the best teams by a pretty good distance, even though the records may not show that. They're making the postseason. Then there's going to be a wild scramble among 4 or 5 other teams, all of which have holes of various forms, including the Pirates. I mean, I think the price was steep for Archer, and it was going to be. I'm not really sure. Glasnow certainly has a huge arm. We've seen this a million times. He has trouble harnessing it. We'll see. I mean, sometimes everybody falls in love with that guy that can throw the ball 98 miles an hour. It doesn't matter if you can't get over and you can't change speeds at the big league level. We'll see how he does in Tampa. I'm not sure he was a huge price other than just the arm that he has. I agree. I mean, Meadows looked like he could play at the big league level. They seem to lose a little confidence in him, to me. And I think the emergence of Dickerson and that trade, how good that trade was, I think made him expendable. Then you put that.
But the one thing that we will see, supposedly one of their top 10 guys are included in this too, and some of the names like Baz and Cruz, who are top 5 prospects with the team, and arguably soon to be top 100 prospects in the game. That's going to make it a little bit of a hefty. Hayes was being bandied around, but a guy who is a little bit in the know, who I talked to, said that he was told it's not going to be him. But so it could possibly be a little steeper than what we're thinking here.
Yep. And we knew it was going to be. I mean, Archer. Yeah. Archer's got he seems like a bright young man. He's a very good college pitcher. He's been a pretty good pro pitcher. I mean, he's had some ups and downs. I'm not really sure where his velocity is. He looked about the same to me when I saw him pitch that first time in Pittsburgh. He does give up some home runs. He's a little bit, and that can be an issue with him sometimes. Sometimes he can walk some people. His past couple years haven't been so good, but that may just be, he's pitching kind of with nothing on the line. He's pitching in front of 12 people. I mean, I think I would take the chance on him. And I think the biggest thing that really caused this, Dave, I hate to say it, is he really doesn't make, I don't want to say he doesn't make anything. I mean, I'd like that income. But for big league baseball today, for that kind of arm, that kind of talent, whatever he was making, was it $7 million or something? I mean, it's really kind of bargain basement.
Reasonable.
For top flight starters in today's baseball. So you put all that together, they climb back in it. It's kind of a wild scramble of a race. They're going to play some of these people head to head. You have a chance to go out and get a guy that's not going to break the bank. You're giving up some heavy, steep price for him, but I mean, they needed to do something about Nova's struggles and Kuhl's struggles before that, and Kingham as well. I mean, they need to do something else. I mean, Talion and Williams, they make me pretty comfortable. Musgrove certainly makes me feel comfortable. You put Archer in that mix, all of a sudden you got 4 guys that can beat you. And to me, the Kayla move is the biggest one, because now you're right. I mean, from the 7th, 8th, and 9th, they can compete with just about any team. I mean, that bullpen's better than the Dodgers is until you get to Jansen. It might even be better than the Cubs is till you get to the end in Davis. So, I mean, that move to me might be the one that really is the trigger if they do climb into this and they do end up getting the postseason. That one might be even the biggest one to me. And you're right, Hechavarria he's a typical strike out too much, swinging for the fences, and he doesn't have that kind of power today. But he can catch the ball. With Miami playing the Phillies a lot, saw a lot of him. He can catch the ball, and I think he probably will if they're in it. And you're playing some tighter games in September. He's probably going to be playing a little more than Mercer is, I think, in my view. But I mean, the road is still pretty steep, though. I mean, if you look at it, looking at the standings through August the 5 is what I have in front of me. I know that's a few days ago, but they're still trailing. One of the wild cards is going to come out of L.A., Arizona, Milwaukee, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Atlanta. And if you look at the standings, although they had that hot streak in July, they're still trailing those teams by 4 or 5 games. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, but that's 6 or 7 teams you're in a scramble with. So it's not going to be an easy road even with these moves. Yeah. But I don't think it's a pattern. I think it was a perfect storm, gentlemen, that came together. Archer's price, Tampa's really wanting to liquidate everything because of all the problems they have down there. The Pirates having some prospects this time that people wanted. And I think the fact that this year was a little bit different season than we've seen in the past. And honestly, they're in a scramble that with the way they reconstructed this, I think they can compete. But it's still not an easy road. It's not a guarantee with those things, despite the future of Archer and even Kayla and some of those guys. I mean, there's a lot of teams in this scramble. And to me, L.A. and Chicago are probably going to get in. Milwaukee, I think, is a good chance they're going to get in. One of Philadelphia and Atlanta is going to have to get in just because of the way the divisional structure is. I'm not sure who I feel is going to come out of that. So that leaves one spot. So you're competing with Arizona, potentially St. Louis, although I think Pittsburgh's probably better than them on paper, and one of Atlanta or Philadelphia. I mean, you got one team out of those 4 that's going to make it. So when they get the head-to-heads in the division ahead of them, where they happen to get, they're going out west, I think, soon. Got to win those games. Got to beat up these bad teams at the bottom, like San Diego and Cincinnati as well, when they get those games. Because if they don't, they lose those series. All these moves will be nice. Maybe position them a lot better for the future. I mean, right now, there was parts of Kuhl I liked. There was parts of Kingham I liked. Nova, I'm not sure. He's had a lot of years now. I think he might be starting to pile up from that. But the bullpen's pretty damn good on paper now, and pretty damn good in reality. You got a number of arms that can come out and start. I think the future's a lot brighter, but I'm not sure this year, even with those moves, they're getting in. Hate to say it. Hope people in Pittsburgh don't turn against me. I think they're going to be in it. I'm not sure they're going to get in. So.
I would tend to agree with you. Fletch, do you have the rose-colored glasses on?
Well, first, I'm going to echo a lot of things what you said, Dave. I mean, remember, I called for them to be sellers, so I do owe Mr. Huntington an apology. Definitely do. It's going to be tough. I mean, going into the day, there were 5 games out of the wild card. They had 5 or 6 teams above them. So basically, the way this is going to have to work, guys, is they're going to have to take up 1 game per week. And that's really how you have to look at it. That means winning every series. And with close to 50 games left, I really think 90, like I said, Dave, is the magic number. So they're going to have to go 31-17. So what that means, if you keep breaking it down, they're going to win. They're going to have to win between 6.5 and 7 out of every 10 games. Yeah. And really, it's the next few weeks that are going to be really telling, because they need to beat the Giants and the Twins. Then they get the Cubs, and they need to smash that pompous ass Joe Madden's annoying face in it. Let me just say that.
I'm with you.
And then they get the Braves, and then they get the Brewers. So a lot's going to happen with that. It's a really tough stretch. But one of the things that I like that happened with these trades, and you guys have talked about it, it's now a 6-inning game. So the team, that's going to put a lot of pressure on the other team. You remember that Reds team of 1990 and the bullpen that they had. And they reduced what a game was. It was a 6-inning game. And if you didn't get them then, you were in trouble. And that's going to be the same thing with Pirates, I think. The other thing, too, is that 11-game winning streak that got everyone excited, that was fabulous. But you can't follow that up with the homestand they just had. That was they can't do that. It really is starting to lose its luster. But I like how they're positioned. I really like some of the things that they've done. I was surprised with the mystery abdomen strain that Sean Rodriguez has, but these things happen apparently whenever you're carrying water coolers throughout the dugout. These things will happen. S-Rod needs to lift with his legs and not with his back, and I think that's a key lesson for all of us here. But as you mentioned, Dave, today's game set up the way it should be. You get your starter with 6 or 7 strong innings, and then you turn it over to that bullpen. And, I like what Crick is bringing. I also like, they've got guys like Rodriguez, you've got guys who they're not letting runners score. And that's the mark of a good bullpen. I think
big arms, too, Fletch. They're big arms, and those guys are whiffing almost as many guys as some of these closers are. Those 3 names you mentioned, when they're coming in, they're lights out sometimes.
Well, the other thing, and I feel for Glasnow, I think it's a good move for him too, because he's going down to Tampa Bay where they've got a pitching coach who specializes in dealing with big guys. I think one of the problems with Glasnow is that he's a big dude. What is he? 6'8"?
Yeah.
And so his mechanics
certainly looks that size. Yeah.
His mechanics weren't great. Dave, you talked about him being good for 2 or 3 innings, and that's, to me, that's a mechanics thing. That he's not able to continue to repeat that motion, which is really what it was so important for a starter. So now he's going down with a coach who gets that, and I think it's going to be a great change of scenery for him.
And I hope, I've said many times, I thought in my lifetime Glasnow was the best talent on the mound that this team has had. And I really hope they figure it out. He's a good kid, and I think he can be really something special if they do.
He's going to get a chance down there. That organization is really, it's clear that they are trying to just stockpile. That's going to be a long-term problem for baseball, I think, because it's such a status-y place anyway, Florida. Nobody knows these guys, but that doesn't affect him getting chances and plenty of these other guys down there. So,
but I think he needed a change of scenery too. It's one of those things I think it's going to be good for him. And Dave, you're right. Meadows showed some promise, and I think that Gary, you mentioned that perfect storm. That the fact that Meadows came up and was able to show some promise like he did at the very beginning made him very attractive.
It made them able to deal, and I think the attendance thing that Dave mentioned as well. Then you put it together like, geez, we've had the biggest fall off in baseball. We do something like this, particularly if we're competitive. Even if they don't win, I'm sure they didn't think that way. They would never get it. But even if they don't get in, but just to be competitive in September with that kind of gate drop-off and probably all the sponsorship drop-off, everything came together nice. You had a guy like Meadows you could move. Plenty of organizations wanted him. Even
more important than the attendance, though, is the fact that they're in the last year of their cable contract. They've got to get some of those numbers up.
Yep. And the city is, I've never seen such an incredible metamorphosis with a fan base that was on strike before the trade deadline, the day before this trade deadline, and after the trade deadline. They love this team again. Ratings were through the roof. since they've gotten Archer, and I wouldn't say attendance is through the roof, but they've had a nice walk-up over the last few games.
Well, you can't bitch about them anymore because they did exactly what you wanted them to do. They went out, They spent some money, they got some guys. And the thing I like about it, guys, is the deals that they made are not just good for this year, but they're good for the future. And, you have a situation at shortstop now where, Jordy Mercer is in the last year of his contract. So is Echeverria they picked up. So one of those two is going to get an offer. So this is a nice way to see if, okay, maybe he has a weaker stick. I don't know. I mean, I think if you look at Mercer's average and his, Mercer gives you a little bit more pop. That's about it. And it's only occasional pop at that. But, clearly you have a better defensive shortstop. And, let's see what happens. Let them play for it.
Well, if he's going to play with Harrison, you need a guy that's going to cover a lot more ground. I think Echeverria could give him that.
Well, they're not going to re-sign Harrison. There's no way at $10 million that they're going to re-sign.
I wouldn't if it were.
And I don't think they re-sign Mercer because I think Echeverria will also be a cheaper option.
Yep.
Than Mercer. But, two things I saw.
The moves are perfect for the long term. I mean, relievers are up and down. Kayla and Vasquez are both having big years. Are they both going to have a bad year next year if they're there at the same time? Probably not. You hope one of them doesn't. Now they got two of them. You put them with those other arms you guys mentioned. That's a damn deep bullpen, one of the deepest in the league all of a sudden. And, people are going to love Archer out there. I mean, he's a bright guy, very friendly guy from what I get.
Well, he's a community guy, too. That's the other thing.
Yeah, people are going to love him out there, I think. But he's got to pitch better. A couple years ago, he lost 19. He gave up a ton of home runs. He seems, he doesn't look like he's not throwing the ball well to me, but he's just not getting as deep in the game. And I can't quite figure out why. If it's because he's throwing a lot of pitches.
I think it's a lack of a third pitch. I think they catch up to him a little better because of that.
I just hope.
Although I will tell you one impressive thing. Echeverria, when I was looking him up the other day in Baseball Prospectus, you know who they compared him to? Jack Wilson.
Oh. Does he have bad teeth?
Yeah. He must. I didn't see the comparison other than that, but he must have bad teeth. But let me ask you: could you imagine that at the trade deadline, McCutchen was being rumored as on the trading block, and Crick has ended up being a pretty damn good reliever? I'm not saying necessarily the Pirates have definitely won the trade, but it sure as hell looks like a lot better than it did a few months ago, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, it does.
And it's funny, Musgrove in the Cole deal too, and even Moran, who could play a couple positions. It's looking a lot better all of a sudden. And honestly, Dave, I thought of you. I can't remember if it was in Sports Weekly, but McCutchen's not Roethlisberger childishness.
Yeah,
get over yourself, okay? I mean, some of the comments he made. Well, they didn't do that when I was there. Well, when you were there, other than a couple years they got the wild card, they fell apart down the stretch a couple times too. Yeah. So
and he acted like an ass last year when they tried to put him or take him out of center field. So.
Yeah. I mean, his comments I thought were a little juvenile that I saw. I think it was in Sports Weekly about the situation. I mean, he kind of positioned it like, well, I wish they would have done it when I was there. I might be there. Well, I don't really know about that.
For 3 years they did, but they couldn't finish the job.
Right.
Well, we're going to go to our lightning fast round right now. Our memorable moments of the week. I first was going to get excited to talk about Pirate farmhands Newman and Stallings, who both hit for the cycle last night, which is the cycle, one of the rarest occurrences in baseball, and you had two guys on the same team with the Pirates AAA team who did it in one night. Impressive, but I can't get over this Urban Meyer thing. This is just, it happens time and time again in major college football where we're going to hide things for the good of the program. And it's happening in the Big Ten, who to this point, out of the Power 5 conferences, has been the one that tried to keep the most academic integrity of the group. But so far, you have had 4 mind-boggling, just nasty controversies in major college that are just ridiculous that they were allowed to go so far. The Michigan State, their doctor raping and abusing several athletes. The doctor or trainer at Ohio State doing the same thing. You got Joe Paterno. Don't even get me started on that. People want to name a damn stadium after him. After this guy turned his head towards child rape for so many years. And how many kids would have been saved had he just opened his damn mouth instead of being worried about the program? Same thing as with Urban Meyer. He's going to blame his wife probably in the long run, claiming he didn't tell her, but that's as bullshit as it can be. This man basically turned his head for the good of the program and allowed to get this woman to have the shit beat out of her. She had 9 calls to the police over the course of a time, and this guy never mentioned a thing to his bosses. I know probably legally, according to the argument by some of the knuckleheads trying to defend Urban, he did what he had to legally, but that's bullshit. You see somebody getting the shit beat out of him, you don't want that guy as part of the program, and you tell your damn administration. Now the embarrassment is 10 times worse. It wouldn't have been an embarrassment. It wouldn't have been an embarrassment if Joe Paterno goes to his bosses and tells them to get this guy the hell out of here and let's call the police. How many people could have been saved at Michigan State? That's incredible. I mean, those people just shouldn't have lost their jobs. They should have been put in jail. The president, anybody on the board who had any idea of this, and whereas maybe D'Onofrio and Izzo didn't know about that or weren't involved in that, if you look at just some of the nasty, violent crimes of some of their athletes over the last few years, it pales in comparison to most programs. And the fact that they did nothing about this and kind of let it go. Those guys shouldn't have a job. I mean, all that came out because of the investigation into the doctor. I mean, we talk about cheating in college sports. That's fine. It pisses me off. The North Carolina thing pisses me off. But you're talking about the welfare of students at universities. We put our trust in these people as our children go to colleges, and you have assholes like this. Who was it? The guy at was it Baylor who kept taking all the rapists? And,
never.
No, they would continue to. They did things on Baylor's campus now. Phil Bennett was named the interim coach after that came out. Phil Bennett was the guy who was defending this player as he was about to be convicted of rape. The day before he was convicted, he was defending him. Yet he kept his job. That's the thing that has to change here. I mean, yeah, we can clean it up, and yeah, we can do this, but this is criminal what these guys do, and it just, I can't even express how it pisses me off. But that, I mean, to me, I can't get past that as the big moment of the week. Fletch?
Well, I'm going to be in the NCAA as well, David, and I'm going to say something positive about them with the new rules that came down today around basketball. They made some sweeping changes that it's going to be better for the sport, better for the kids, better for all involved, and they're also going to start holding people accountable. One of the things that they talked about is that school presidents and chancellors are going to now be personally held accountable for the NCAA for their academic departments abiding by the rules. That's different. They're also going to require all school presidents, chancellors, and athletic staff to contractually comply with any and all future investigations. So things like what happened out with Sean Miller, with some of these other coaches, they've basically given the NCAA trying to get a de facto version of subpoena power. So now everyone, you have to cooperate with these investigations. The other things they're doing for the players, players who get invited to the NBA Combine but go undrafted, they'll have the option to return to their former school, which that's huge. And the other thing, too, is they're looking at some of these elite prospects. They're going to be identified by USA Basketball, and they're going to work with the NCAA to work with that, and they're going to allow those kids to have official relationships with agents. So, you know, they've recognized that the system was broken, and, excuse me, they're looking to make some changes. So I have to give them props for that.
Absolutely. I would agree with you 100%. Mr. Gary.
Those are all steps in the right direction, Fletch, if that happens. I'm sure that in America's legal system, the way it is today, that some of these coaches like Miller will still get defense attorneys that'll deflect it, delay it, to not have them talk. But you're right. I mean, that's a step in the right direction because that's been the biggest problem. And honestly, that bleeds into what you said, Dave, about the Myers stuff. I mean, they kind of know that they're almost a little bit protected. You know, because like in Ohio State football or Michigan State basketball, you're making so much money, and particularly Penn State. I think Penn State was just cluelessness in a town that nobody can get to, and there's no scrutiny. You know, that and the arrogance associated with that. But the fact of the matter is they know that they're going to get away with murder, so to speak. You know, they haven't fired Meyer. They put him on administrative leave.
Oh,
you bet you guys $1 they're not going to fire him.
They're not.
So I mean, I think but letting somebody beat up a woman 9 times. First of all, it's hard to me to believe whether you're arrogant or not to be that stupid to think that what that would do to your reputation. Like, I mean, if we were running a business, the three of us, and somebody was doing something like that, wouldn't you try to protect your name and your brand by I'd say sweep it under the rug, but at least dealing with it before it ever got out? I mean, it's just hard.
Gary, I don't think he survives this, Gary. I really don't.
I don't know, Fletch. I have a feeling it's going to be questionable. I mean, you're probably right, kind of the world that we're in. Actually, it kind of works a double-edged sword. But, the fact is that he's there still when it's pretty clear. You're probably right. He's probably going to take his own spouse down. But, I mean, the nonsense that Paterno and his defense attorneys used that, well, he didn't see it. And I argued with some people here in, the liberal East about that. My rear. They're negotiating shoe contracts and shirt contracts, and they don't know that this is going on. That's a bunch of BS. Let's be honest.
Well, if you hear of everything, I mean, the man, when he was about to be fired, told the president, "You're not firing me." A guy to have that kind of power, and if you believe the insurance reports, and I would tend to believe them because Penn State paid millions of dollars off them. To people that were raped in the 70s, and these kids were basically saying that they went to Paterno to tell him about this, and he basically blew them off. So you're not just talking about an old man at the end; you're talking about a guy in his prime.
Institutional evasiveness, right? I agree with that. Look, I'm with you. I mean, I never cared for the program anyway. Always thought it was arrogant beyond belief. Played the weakest schedule, and they played the weakest schedule in the country for 25 years to build up their top 20 ranking. Never particularly cared for it, but my point is I just cannot believe that you would be that stupid, despite your arrogance or despite your small town, Ohio State or Michigan State or wherever, to think that this isn't going to get nailed. Like, I mean, I just can't believe that there's not more, thought process about that long term. Now, they may all be in short term and make so much money they end up not caring. But the reality of the matter is probably Meyer's going to get penalized a lot harder, Fletch, because there's been so many other controversies that have been hit.
I mean, look at the programs he's run before. I mean, there have been a lot of issues with players, and
yep, there was. That's why he was out of Florida.
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons he was out.
And they were glad he was gone.
They were glad he was gone. You're right.
And I recall reading some of the stuff this week about his dealings with Aaron Hernandez.
Yep.
Trying to hide rather than do what he needed to do. But
that's the ugliest one, maybe of all. Exactly.
I tend to think if he uses the my wife didn't tell me defense, I think they keep him. I really think.
I can't see it happening.
Mentality at Ohio State is such.
People got to
listen. They got rid of Jim Tressel for having his players selling selling memorabilia and getting tattoos. If they're going to make that move on Tressel, who was a god there,
but they had written proof on Tressel. They had no choice with him. This idiot gets up and puts it on his wife. I bet you they're going to let him off the hook, and they shouldn't.
I don't know much about.
I hope you're right, Fletch. I really hope you're right.
I do too. I am in complete agreement. I don't know much about Columbus. I got to believe that's not the liberal East or West Coasts. That may be a factor in some of this as well. There's a lot of alumni out there, probably in Ohio and Chicago and stuff like that. They're probably pretty conservative thinkers. He could get cooked because of that kind of environment as well. You know,
Yeah.
but I mean, I don't know. I guess I just cannot believe the absolute arrogance and disregard for some other stuff, as you say, kids putting the trust in this stuff. You know, I mean, yeah, it's just amazing the disregard for this stuff. And part of the problem is people just don't vote. I mean, I'm not trying to make a political statement here, but you know, if what do they sell in Columbus? 102,000 tickets on a Saturday.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden it dropped to 70, because some people say that's just it, I'm just done with this. Honest to God, that would have a bigger effect. I mean, I'm not trying to make a political statement, but
I think if boosters stop writing the checks, I mean that's where it all comes down to.
People stop paying attention to it because they think it's a scum fest like Michigan State. That will fix it.
Yeah.
But I just think people I hate to say it, I'm not sure society really cares. They just want to go there for the tailgating. You know, they want to flash their signs on that stupid ESPN show on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
You know, that people don't really give a damn, to be honest with it. So
Urban means they're in the national championship race.
Yep, exactly. They're going to be in the bowl championship series.
Yeah.
A lot of people, that's all they care about. They care about the partying on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday instead of saying, you know what, this university ought to be ashamed of itself. We're not buying it. But that unfortunately just isn't the world we're in. It's kind of a showy nonsense world. So I don't mean to go off on this, but I'm with you. It infuriates me.
Gary, I think that should be the name of your first album.
What's that?
It's a showy nonsense world.
My first album.
Oh, that isn't being a busher. That's not being a busher.
That is not being a busher. That's stepping up.
Stepping up, man.
I laughed at that the other day when I was driving. All right, I'm going to be quick because we're going a little. I'm sorry for going off on my speech, my Trump-like speech there. But my moment of the week's a lot simpler. Nobody pays attention to boxing anymore, they say. I'm not sure that's really true. And on Saturday night down in Atlantic City, which is the first time in 4 years that big-time boxing returned, I did not go, unfortunately, but we had a huge upset. There was a light heavyweight by the name of Sergey Kovalev who was blowing through everybody, almost like a movie. It appeared in his 2 fights against Andre Ward, who was probably a better fighter, that he showed some of the typical Eastern European weaknesses, you know. When he was winning the fight easily, he was in command. When somebody fought back, he didn't like that. And quite frankly, if somebody fought back too hard or changed the strategy that he was prepared for, he folded up. He fought a guy by the name of Eliader Alvarez who had waited like the old school for his title chance for 4 years. Hardly anybody saw this guy. It was 31 fights. He was undefeated. Only 11 of his fights were tracked by CompuBox, which tells you nobody was paying attention. He's a Colombian guy fighting up in Montreal. Fight was very good in the beginning. Alvarez outboxed Kovalev. Kovalev started to turn the fight, was landing a lot of harder punches. Almost had him out in the 4th and looked frustrated when he didn't get him out. Sure as hell in the 7th round, Kovalev walks right into a big right hand. Alvarez knocks him down. Whole world shocked. Kovalev gets up. Alvarez knocks him down again. Kovalev gets up. He knocks him out for good. Stunning upset in the light heavyweight division with Kovalev losing. It's created a lot of commotion, but to me, that's my moment of the week. It's one of the things about boxing that still makes it like a movie. Glad I saw it. Always happens. It's amazing how much it happens. So.
Now, did I tell you, Fletch, I had that fight on DVD and I had yet to watch it, and Gary just ruined it for me. What does that make? What does that make, Gary? Make him a cold, heartless bastard.
Oh.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm sorry.
I'm busting you, man. Oh man! See, Fletcher's afraid to make a statement there. You're afraid to make a statement against Gary.
Well, I'm trying to encourage Gary to be a warmer person. So I'm not gonna come down hard on him.
I'm sorry, Dave.
Because here's the thing that Gary's doing for me. He's reawakening my love for boxing. So Gary, I'm going to start watching again because.
Don't put a fight on DVD and wait too damn long. Maybe that's my fault.
I'm sorry, Dave.
I was on Facebook waiting for Marilyn to eat her cold quiche, which she has yet to do, by the way.
Well, speaking of Facebook, we have to have a little conversation. Please, Gary, where are you? Why are you not on Facebook? How are we supposed to promote the show if you're not on there?
Yeah, so I'm a little behind the times, Fletch.
But it was a great picture that your wife posted of you with the boxer. It got me fired up.
That's Kovalev.
Yeah.
That's the guy that was knocked out.
Yeah, you look like you could go a few rounds yourself, Gary. You're looking good. Although, I hope you've addressed your glass jaw from your past, but I think you can go.
But he bounces back up. He has a glass jaw like Matthew Saad Muhammad. At least he bounces up.
I'm just wondering if he's a bleeder. If he's like one of the great Irish fighters, that he's a bleeder.
You gotta be. I think Gary has a little Irish blood in him, don't you, Gary?
Maybe. I'm not 100% sure.
You're embarrassing your people if you don't bleed out there.
Sell more tickets. I really am sorry, Dave. I ruined the drama for you.
I'm busting chops here. I'm busting chops, buddy.
I'm touched, Fletch, that you care enough about my softening my personality to make me warmer and fuzzier for all of our.
I think you've come a long way, Gary. You've come a long way.
Yeah, but I have only because of these podcasts. So.
He's going to call me up and yell at me after for trying not to do the same thing. I'm in trouble. Oh, man. But we're going to go into our speed round. And you know what's going to happen on Saturday, August 11th at 8 p.m., gentlemen?
What is that, Dave?
Oh, man. The Ottawa Rough Riders are going to play the Montreal Alouettes. And Johnny Manziel is going to be quarterback again. Johnny Manziel, he of the 4 interception, the lousy, don't know if he could have been successful in high school football in his debut, his CFL debut last week with the Montreal Alouettes. Can you say that properly, Fletch? Can you say Alouettes?
Oh, Alouette. Jante Alouette.
There you go. My bold prediction is Johnny Manziel will not throw 4 interceptions this week.
That is truly bold.
Is that really bold? I wish I was in Vegas now. Do we have legal betting here yet?
The over-under. I'm wondering what it is. It could be 6.
I don't know. But he's going to throw less than 4 interceptions this week. I'm going to be bold there. I don't think the Alouettes win, but I think he's going to improve. And how can you ask anything more? Can you ask anything more?
That's beautiful.
Well, I saw that he said that he felt really good out there, and mistakes are going to happen in football. I saw he said that on the ESPN news.
4 interceptions, Gary. Gary being warm and
he's been
making there, Fletch, because of you.
He's been making mistakes since the 6th game of his junior year at Texas A&M, both on and off the field. So he ought to know that a lot of mistakes happen. So.
Well, it's sort of like that whole thing. Mistakes were made. That's all he has to say.
Mistakes were made. And it's not like the team was good. They're 1-6 right now, so it's worse than 1-5, but it's still not Super Bowl.
No, 0-7.
I'm going to say Grey Cup. Okay, I apologize. Grey Cup contender. Oh man, you were saying, Fletch. I was waiting for the comment.
Oh no, I'm letting it go. Because
what are you going to say? Come on.
I'm trying to be nice as well.
Man,
I will say the Canadian football broadcasts make the ESPN Plus app even more worth the money. I mean, I will say
I would agree with you.
That ESPN app, for once, ESPN's just checked its comedy show, and that app's fantastic, and you get a ton of Canadian football. And I always loved Canadian football.
I watch a couple games a week. I agree with you. Yep. I do enjoy it.
I don't mind the combination of football and comedy. I mean, maybe I was the only one who appreciated Dennis Miller on Monday Night Football, but when he was talking about they were talking about someone having minor groin surgery, and Dennis Miller correctly pointed out that there's no such thing as minor groin surgery. With something sharp coming at your groin, that's a major thing.
That is true.
Oh, my gosh. Gary, what's your bold prediction of the week?
Which one of us, Fletcher, me?
You're up, Gary.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I kind of dozed off there for a second.
I think he was imagining a minor groin surgery at the time.
Yeah, I was trying to put that out of my mind because you're right.
That is stunning.
My weakest part of my game here is bold predictions. I think
I set the bar low for you.
This one's a little bit of a cynical bold prediction. Let's bet $1 between the 3 of us that by Sunday, in the first week of the NFL preseason, with nothing at stake and no regulars playing a down, someone will make a controversy about standing during the national anthem. Okay? There'll be some kind of press commentary about this, microphones in front of some seventh-round draft pick from North Texas State making another political statement. Hopefully the NFL squashes it, but I guarantee you we'll have one in one of the games that start tomorrow night through Sunday, unfortunately. Can we just end this once and for all? If you want to stand, stand. If you don't want to stand, I don't care. Stop talking about it. Goodell, everybody else. Let's just play the games, okay, in my view. But I guarantee it'll be something like that. And our old friends at ESPN will certainly make a big controversy out of it. Let's say that'll be my prediction as well. So,
agreed.
Rights will be taken away.
All right, Fletch, bring us home.
Well, fellas, I'm jumping on the Tiger train for the PGA. And I'll tell you why. The greens are going to be really slow because of the weather, and they've also rehabbed that course. And because Tiger's putting stroke hasn't been with him at all times, this is going to be a big thing for him. And so that, with the course the way it's sitting, it's going to call for aggressive play. And who could be more aggressive than Tiger? So if you get in the right place on these large greens, you're golden. If you don't, you're still not in trouble because the chipping areas are pure and they're going to allow the players to spin the ball even from short distances. And you may even see a little fill appearance in all of this too because of these greens. It's going to be old-timey golf, my friends, old-timey golf.
Love him or hate him, I agree with you. If Tiger is in contention, it's a fun weekend.
Well, he's the Lakers, Cowboys, Yankees of that sport. Golf followers are very passionate. We know that. They watch everything. They pay attention, just like most of the other sports. But him being in it, him playing well, helps the game immensely, it seems to me, as a somewhat of a casual observer. So.
I would agree. Well, that is the gutsiest call of the week.
It is.
So go you, Fletch.
Well, you guys are so girly with your picks, so, I mean, I had to do something.
I'm not girly, I'm nasty, so I slipped back again.
My bad.
Yeah.
How about if I say he threw 5 interceptions? Would that make it less girly?
Oh, that's less girly.
That's probably
let's throw 5
Saturday.
interceptions this week, damn it.
Yeah, that's probably this Saturday by 10:30. So.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, my. Well, next week we're going to have a college football fest. So, with the season quickly approaching, we're going to talk about what we'll be seeing in the upcoming season. So,
you guys traveling out to Hawaii to see Duquesne play out there on September 22nd?
No,
I forgot.
Playing at Hawaii on September 22nd. So they also play the first college football game of the year on August 25th against Massachusetts. So.
I know. So they're having the upgrade of the program is just incredible. 2 FBS teams in 1 year. I don't mean this sarcastically. I really can envision playing Pitt down in the not too distant future. I'm not kidding. I can see that. I like the way they put the program, and to me, that they get their ass kicked. Don't get me wrong, but I think that would be, just incredible from where we came in 1979 when they first started up the program at the NCAA level again. I mean, as we watched Gallaudet in that first game, could you imagine playing Hawaii and UMass in a season?
No.
Well, UMass sucked, but back then, but certainly you couldn't imagine going out to Hawaii. I think it's pretty incredible. I love what they've done with the program.
I mean, I hope financially that's not going to be a boondoggle. I mean, that's a long way to go with a big bunch of personnel. You hope the gate they're going to get is worth it. But still, to do it, the attention, and then to play the very first game of the year on the 25th at 5:30. That's fantastic work by someone, in my opinion.
Well, there's also a big college game coming up in October at Duquesne. I don't know if you guys know. Dave, you're probably familiar with it. But there's talk of a Playboy reunion that's going to include a football game.
I heard that.
Probably that's going to mean there's going to be a trip to the hospital for many of us the following day.
Yeah, the only problem with that is there's no position like catcher where you can just sit back and drink a beer. So that's my problem. I mean,
I've seen pictures of some of these guys. I've seen some of these guys on Facebook, and I think I might actually have blazing speed for someone going against some of these guys. which I've never had in my life.
I think Magnu would certainly disagree with you on that one.
Well, Joey Maggs looks like he has some game left to go. Some of the other ones,
he has some game left.
I don't know, but but I think we can. I think I can get in his head. I really do.
I don't suppose there's a position as secondary coach in this reunion.
Well, Gary, you missed Dave and I coming out of retirement to play hockey together a few years back, and we were the grinder line.
See how much you posted on Facebook.
We were.
There was no speed there, but tell him, Dave, we scored because we knew where the other one was going to be.
Exactly. I put it.
We were the oldest players in the league. We were the oldest players in the league.
I had some minor groin issues. That
there are none of those
curtailing my season.
Yes,
they don't win the championship without us, Fletch.
They did not without us. I mean, we got the ugly goals.
Yeah, absolutely. But I got irritated when they asked me to run like 10 feet down the thing. I was very comfortable where I was at behind the net.
Well, and I used my low center of gravity and parked myself in front of the net. And garbage goals count the same.
It was a sweet goal. It was the game-winning goal, as I recall, too.
It was. Of course, I didn't do like Gary Kinn in that famous playoff game when he scores the winning goal and then takes the stick and points at each individual person in the crowd. Still one of the great moments in Playboy hockey history.
Yeah, there's no ego for me in those days, right?
That's when being a cold, heartless bastard is all worth it.
He was the closer.
He was. He closed it. He was a sweet Molly wannabe, wasn't he?
He was.
I certainly was.
Yeah. So. All right, gentlemen. You have a wonderful evening.
Have a nice evening. Lots of fun.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right, guys.